Hello everybody, my name is Robert Tomić, iliti na hrvatskom Robert Tomić Zuber je ovdje, so we will talk in English. We are now with a lit new topic this month. We have gathered again together, and my friends are here. I'm happy to, here they are with one take. It's Sanja Kisicek, Andreas Volgerdes, and Luka Knežić. Hello to you.
Hello to you, Robert.
Yeah, well, we will talk. Andreas, can you hear? Yeah?
I hear you well.
Yeah, Luka, just a second. We need to unmute you. Okay, now, can we hear you?
Yes, excellent.
Okay, excellent. You look excellent, Luka, I must say, different from all of us. It's like, I don't know if you remember that film, The 18. You look like 18. Anyway, so... the topics of today, it's a little bit, it's not so amusing one. It's a very, how do we say, the worried one, what's happening in Croatia, and it's topic with the children. We had a situation with a 2-year-and-a-half kid, Nicole, who was killed by her mother. Then we have the whole country in Croatia being upset by it. We were very emphatic. There were candles in front of the hospital, and there were teddy bears, and there were so much promises. And then life went go day by day. We forgot about it even in 1 month, and then after 1 month, the Chamber of Social Workers announced that nobody is guilty from the system. So life goes on. What do you say, guy? Sanja, would you go first?
Well, I can briefly just say that it's hard to tell from my perspective of an observer from the media perspective on what happened here. Is it negligence? Is it someone's oversight? Is it lack of responsibility? Is it bad parenting? Is it all of them mentioned? What matters now is that is to detect and identify the gaps in the system, and to make sure that the systems cross-reference in the future, cross-collaborate, sharing information transparently, which does not mean publicly. Not everybody needs to know sensitive information, but transparently cross systems, so that the hurtful past is not buried, but that it's brought to surface so that we can learn from it and improve. Would you agree, Luka?
Yes, and from what I've read in the media in the last few weeks, of course, it's a very sensitive topic, and I don't know everything about it, only what I read in the media, but the parents couldn't take responsibility of Nicole, and they didn't basically give her to social services so they can take care of her. And then a few years passed, and they got 2 more kids, and at least that's what media is now telling us. And they wanted to get Nicole back. And I read in the media also that it is because of financial support that the government was offering for children. And another thing that I read, which is interesting, is that Nicole's mother also reported abuse from her husband. And, this is something that could definitely be stopped, and we could have reacted earlier. And that is why we are here, because I think that is where we can use what we already have available, and the innovation that is available could stop it. And that is why I think it's important to use what we already have to do those things.
Okay,
And
Andreas, Yeah, I was thinking that Andreas, you had some experience with Croatian social services. Unfortunately, not the good one with your situation with your daughter. But let's go a step forward from your point of view. Now, when you know Croatian society, Croatian social system, what do you think? How do you look at this story of little Nicole? Sorry, we don't have your tone, so maybe you should. Yeah, now we have. I think
it's a systematic failure. I sadly became an expert on the subject. I have been studying the implications and the system for multiple years now, and made it the core of my activities to understand more about it and to see how it can be changed. So, and at this stage, it's a systematic failure. The system is designed to fail. It's designed to fail children at this stage. And I'm happy to be quoted and questioned on the subject any day, any time of the day. We are not applying common sense. We are dealing with the Nicole case. This is one example. And one of the people who was really plugged in Croatia described Nicole's status as minced meat. So she described Nicole's brain as minced meat. This was her terminology. And so it was not Nicole being dropped. It's a systematic situation. So, but on a 10,000 foot level, there's a systematic setup failure at this stage, which is not protecting children, where there is no common sense applied. And this leads to a situation where we right now have more than half of the children growing up in what I call civil war. Yeah, so where there is a systematic battle going on, and the system as it is supporting it, is not stopping it. So it's dragging out cases where it takes multiple years and kids are teenagers before anything might get resolved. This is the status we have at this stage.
Okay, so when we talk about the recent shocking events concerning child abuse, we have I have one thing we didn't talk about it, and I think that it's how to say, it's important, and that is that I think that out of this situation, out of this problem, this case, particular case, there should be something called punishment. I know it sounds vindictive, but I'm not talking about punishment in the sense of vendetta style, but the punishment of the system, which will detect who is responsible, who was in the contact with the family, who made the decision that it can be done that the kid comes back to that family, who made all of these mistakes, which I talked to two girls who started the initiative called We Have to Tell You Something, Moramo nešto reći. They were, one of them was in a foster family, the other one was adopted. So they becoming, as a young, very young, strong two women who became the voice of the voiceless. And I think that the voiceless are the children, those who are abused in the family. And I think that the voiceless are the children who are left out of the family and being cared by the system, which shows us that very often it's no care. So I think that the first step to everything what you probably suggest today, I probably will agree, as a person who had a lot of experience with the social system, unfortunately for 45 years, more than everybody. And I told that one, I was invited to one parliament talk, and I there listened to those, everybody who was in a way, how they say, experts. And I said, listen, I didn't study social issues. I studied law and I studied sociology. But unfortunately, everybody was saying we are 10 years in the system, we have 20 years of experience, we have 30. And I said, listen, no, I have 45 years of experience. So, because I was, from the first year, drawn to the system of social affairs. Why? Because I was left out. I was in a foster family, which was a beautiful family, and I had luck, and not like many others. And I know every steps and mistakes which they can do in your childhood. Now we have a situation of 45 years after, nothing changed. Before, it was the law in the name of the people of Socialistic Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. You know what changed? Now you have the law of the people of Republic of Croatia. The title changed. The content stayed the same. So for once in my life, we had 3 years ago in my hometown, Pula, lady who killed her son, Dennis. Grandmother came to the social services days before, pledging, asking to help, that they should take away the child from that house. You know who is guilty 3 years after? Nobody.
No one.
Again, the social services chamber said that everything was done okay. Maybe, but we have to decide, because, you know, constitution is something like a social contract. When you're born, your predecessor decided that you will be part of this society because they gave birth in this society. But maybe in this society called Croatia, we can come to a consensus that we can kill children and that nobody is guilty. If we as a society decide that this is a consensus for Croatian society, okay, then tell us, so I can decide that I will leave then from this society. If not, then we have to change something, and not just blah, 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 because everybody was so emotional. Where are those people who were burning candles these days after Nicole was dying? It was the full house in front of the hospital. I understand it's very, how they say, comforting to comfort yourself that you couldn't do anything. Few tears, few candles, and few bears, and you go home and go with your life. Are they upset because of that? Are the number of people who came with the candles in front of the Klačeva clinic, the hospital, did they came in front of the Chamber of Social Services? Did they came in front of the parliament? Did they came in front of the government and ask, what the fuck has happened?
Well, Robert, what do you see as a good avenue for cases like this?
But Robert, you know what this reminds me of? I was born early enough, so my father, I'm the youngest of 8, my father was born in 1920. So my father was serving in the youth of Adolf Hitler's movement. And so logically, growing up in Germany, I asked questions. So I had questions and said, okay, can you explain to me what happened? Why did all these people disappear? Why were they put into cattle wagons on a train and all you guys thought that's cool? Yeah, and so I asked questions to people when I grew up and said, what happened and why did nobody actually stand up and do something about it? So the answers I got were not really, didn't make any sense to me. But it reminds me to a high degree, if you would have asked the Germans at that time, was anybody guilty? No, they just followed orders and it was actually sanctioned by the law. And I'm sure if you would even ask the union of the guys who worked at German concentration camps and ask the union of the workers at concentration camps if they did anything wrong, no, they just followed the orders. So if there would have not been an intervention from the outside, so this is what I'm saying, if there wouldn't have been intervention from the outside, I don't think we would have ever had Nuremberg trials. So what I'm trying to say, there is hopefully a situation that something wakes up on the inside. From me having looked as an example, Croatia for over 4 years now, I said it's systematic failure. Nobody's interested to do something about it. And the systems are there. You can change it. You can.
I can, but yeah, I can change, and I agree. The only thing why I'm putting two of us in this cradle is that I wouldn't go far and compare the situation in Croatia with the Nazism. Sorry, I cannot go that far. But I can say that every child which was lost is on somebody has a name with blame. That's my point. Because we have a situation in America, for example, where you have the situation with the Black Lives Matter movement, when you had a teenager who actually shot the situation with the police killing a black person, and now we have a sentence. So one person has, in a way, the change. Sorry, something happened to my computer. Okay, we are here again. Something has happened. Is that you can see that you can change things doing something. In Croatia, unfortunately, it's happening that we can, just sitting down. That's the difference. Maybe LIT is one of the way of doing it and making awareness.
But
Sorry,
look,
guys.
look at what happened. Look, you refer to the George Floyd case. There was a teenager by the name of Daniela Frazier. Daniela Frazier had the upstander character. She was in tears herself, but she was holding up her phone for 9 minutes recording it. Yeah, so is there justice now? No, not really, because there were other officers next to the guy who was on the back of George Floyd. They didn't do anything. Yeah, Daniela Frazier was bold enough to record it, and this actually led to pressing charges, to the proceedings, to him being convicted, and one officer going into prison. The other ones were standing around, and probably will nothing happen to them. So that's familiar. I'm passionate about mobile and e-mobile, which I call empowered mobile, because it allows people like Daniela Frazier to take a recording. So we have all of this in place in Croatia. People could take recordings. People could share videos and photos. There needs to be transparency in the system to follow through. But there is even, Robert, there is evidence in the system in certain verticals. I'm familiar with cases in Croatia where there is information in certain verticals, let's say in different cities, and then child protection in one city does not bother to check what information is in the other cities, because why would they look into the law court in Sisak for proceeding in Zagreb, right? Or why would they look into potentially getting information from another country where somebody was recently to check what happened over there? They don't. They do not. So the common sense perspective, if you buy a used car, you check more about the history of the car and call certain people or check certain records or logbooks, then you actually deal with child protection at this stage.
Right, and that's sad. So your point, Andreas, basically is that somebody from the outside would need to intervene or offer their insights so that we can wake up. The same analogy that you made with Nazis, the same as Americans came in and made us all aware that that shouldn't be acceptable and allowed. So making somebody else from the outside come in and say, we are all able to record with our phones and report back, but we just don't do it because there's a lack of social responsibility. But
and
I'm curious.
If you record it, they wouldn't accept it. Even if you were to record and give it to them, to the social services in one
it wouldn't
city,
be acceptable.
they're not even interested to check the information when you highlight it to them and say there is evidence in court proceeding X in a town which is maybe 100 kilometers away from Zagreb. They wouldn't pull the file.
But what do you see then? Maybe this question goes both for Robert being so experienced and from the inside involved with the social services. What is then a good avenue for cases like this to look very different so that they are much more efficient and effective so that they're not rolling for years, even sometimes decades? What's a good avenue? What does it look like?
I think that you need something which is called a very revolutionary reform, and it's not done only by the, how they say, those who are involved, but with the higher place of society and wider spread changes and revolution. Maybe one of the ways is it actually like talks like this, maybe, but I think that they can only motivate, they cannot change. And I hope that at least we are motivating somebody to think about it and to, I don't know, decide to join and maybe make a group where people like these two girls, which I mentioned before, they're very shouty and they are not allowing that they will be shut up. And they are talking. And they are, but I'm not sure how long the Croatia is a specific society. Maybe there is a bit of sense of bitterness in my voice now, and I don't feel very optimistic because I think that unfortunately the mentality of Croatian is such a strange thing to me. It's like, you can kick us, you can walk on us, you can, sorry for saying that, piss on us, and okay, we go for coffee, we have for my bills, and we have for a little bit of food, and we are satisfied. That's the thing I think that this Croatian society deserves better and deserves the possibility of greater awareness, because we deal with a war, and there you could see, it seems now, which is so crazy, that we had the best of people in Croatia during the war. When you had war, when you have criminals, when you had war crimes, better it seems. They were caring for each other more. They were defending each other more. Now everybody is living their own life, and I think that I really feel more and more unpleasant living in society where 2 years and a half unprotected Nicole can be killed and nothing happens. Nobody feels, life goes on. I'm a little bit depressed, as you would say, because I'm a parent. Both of you are parent. Luca is the only one who, in this quarter, is not a parent. But I think he feels what having the children is. If that happened to my either one or other son, I don't know. I would. If the society would not react as they did not react in this set, I would go on a vendetta. And I know that it's not good. I know that it's what I'm saying is, like a scary thing to say. But that's the way how you're making fanatics in society. That's the way how you're making those people who are not to talk about it. When you're constantly not giving them at least sense of justice. And that's what's happening in Croatia. Sorry.
I think a good way to solve this is the same way we solve corruption or any other bad thing happening in Croatia. So I think what Andrea tried to say with that example in Germany is you don't have to listen what the government says if it's wrong. And sometimes the government doesn't do the right thing. And doesn't mean that we all have to say, yeah, nobody's guilty if they say nobody's guilty, or it cannot be changed if it really can be changed, and we can see obviously can change. And a really good example, what you, Robert, mentioned was what happened in the U.S. with George Floyd, where this woman just used her phone. We all have our phones,
Yes.
and it's just a matter of standing up. And maybe there is some type of some difference in Croatian culture where people just don't stand up and get justice, or where they see something is wrong, they just don't react and say, "Yeah, my life is good. Why would I react? I don't want to ruin what I already have. I'm peaceful. I have something to eat." And unless it's war and their freedom is in danger, they just don't react. I know because I feel like that sometimes as well. I think it's also in human nature, but I also believe this is the best way to change it. And I can talk about it now I would love to discuss how we can change it, but by using innovation, by just being objective, by using what we already have. We have phones, we have social media, where I bet if somebody recorded, or for example, if that mother of Nicole, she went to the police and reported violence, and someone in police can just, mark that, just put this in the directory online that this happened, and make it transparent, so the neighbors, for example, know if something's happening, they can just record it, they can make evidence, because if you have evidence, you can share it with everyone in public. It's easy to post it somewhere, just to share it, and then no one can say police, it's not their fault, or it's not fault of social services, because there is obviously something was wrong. And you have the history evidence that you can check, or anyone can check, which cannot be destroyed by anybody or changed by anybody. And that's how we all can contribute in changing it. That's what's going to happen in the future for sure. It's inevitable. That's how countries will run in the future. And it's just not happening yet in Croatia for some reason. And it's not that complicated.
So
like if you look at this case, it's just a bunch of text, or photos, videos, any law case. It's just a bunch of text, media, and videos in a historical way, like put on a timeline in a historical way. So why wouldn't that timeline be updated regularly by other people, or just being so that there is some accountability and that nobody can change it, nobody can manipulate it?
Luca,
I mean, that's just a simple idea. Yeah.
And we don't need any technical infrastructure for this, Luca. We have phones, right? We have everything. We can have platforms. We just need that collective responsibility. We need people to be.
It's so easy to change it. I guarantee if you just ask a blockchain, if you just ask a simple company that does this, they can do it very quickly. But it's just a matter of.
What I'm saying, the innovation is in society responsibility, not in technology. The innovation is in willingness to want to do that. And what Robert made a comment on us as a society being willing to be stepped on, it's our heritage, it's our historical burden of just always and suffering from that imposter syndrome by always being under somebody else's empire. And we psychologically are allowed to be subordinate.
That's my point. We have this. It's very powerful. We have these cameras, we have front camera, and we can use them. Every day we can just put like this. We are doing that for trash stuff. Like, for example, in Croatia, there was a winner of some kind of rally, and we had few people. Actually, it was not news report. It was the citizen report, because they just done this when he made the mistakes in the road. The police came. Everything was taped, not by the news. So what if we would do, as Sanya said, use technology by having will to do good, to report, to be the watchdog of the societies? We can all be watchdogs. It's all our responsibility. And the only comparison I would go with Nazism is the fact that whenever there was a saying of a Jewish one, when they came to take me, it was too late because nobody was there to defend. So what I'm saying is, paraphrasing this, is like, everything is okay when Nicole is not your daughter. It's not your niece, your sister. Then something changed.
Robert, there are people in Croatia, and you met one, Milita, whom you had interviewed for Al Jazeera at the time. There are very passionate people in Croatia who actually have dedicated vast time of their life to change this. What is needed is more people to stand up, start recording, and doing what Daniela Frazier did in America, and make sure that George Floyd didn't die for nothing. So that is the core. And so there are people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is now part of the government in the US. So in terms of, there are some upstanders like her who clearly said, yes, it's not justice because only one officer was charged and the other ones were standing by. But she's clearly articulating that on Instagram, seen by millions of people in America. So that is triggering a change in mindset. And if I would be Plenković or anybody in government or opposition, I would ask the person in charge of social services, give me the top 100 cases where we know that things are on red alert. So we know those things. I know 10 myself, so which are on red alert. So there's enough evidence if somebody looks across the available information, not what they're doing right now. Now they're in one social services or child protection center, they're only looking into the vertical. And if you give them information which is here or there, they don't want to see it. They do not want to take cognizance of it. So, but if I would be in government or if I would be in media, I would say, let me know what are the 100 most critical cases. Where do we expect the next Nicole? And tell me what are we doing about it? And I would love to get every month, I would love to get an update. How do we protect the top 100? We cannot protect everybody all the time. Only society can do that. Only people who are awake and look out and watch out for their neighbors, they can do that. Yeah. And so, but it creates a different culture step by step.
I agree.
So that transparency and empowered people could change it. So, but I think, Sanya, you mentioned the other day, what happens if somebody calls the police, right?
All right, I was about to say that's another layer, another problem of the society. It's very biased. Our systems are biased in terms of being very lenient to the mother. So, for example, I know of an experience of my close friend. He called the police, reporting on child abuse caused by his, at that time, wife, and they had a small child at the time as well. So he called the police to come and intervene. And then on the phone, the police kept asking him, sir, are you sure you want us to come? Are you sure you want us to come? And he was like, yes, that's why I'm calling you. I need you to intervene. I'm reporting on my wife causing abuse on our child. And the police then said, but we are taking you away because we are always taking the. So it's just like that. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct with all cases, but that's very biased, and it doesn't depend on the scenario. That's actually true, and that's correct. So what you and Andreas are saying, that if neighbors, if everybody are upstanders, then regardless of the police and whatever who they will take away, we can act upon it, and we can be transparent and very shocked by it publicly.
I know there's a strong bias. I know that the most family court judges are women. I know that the most women working in social services are women. I know that there are many family court lawyers are women. And I know about enough cases where the people working at child protection in Croatia are actually collaborating with people in a way how they shouldn't. So that is what it is. Over 90% of the people in prison are men, and nearly 90% of all the suicides are men. So nobody asks for gender equality in those environments. So it's important to change the model. I have hope because I believe in women. And I know that 98% of all educators of human beings, of all human beings, are actually women during the most formative years of human beings. So during the most formative years, actually 98% of all the education comes through women. So if they really want to change this, they could. And they should, because ultimately you have a whole bunch of people who are proud to be single mothers. And then you realize at the end of the day, again, the prisons are full, of men who have been brought up without fathers. So it will be up to Luca's generation to say, you know what, in this environment, we don't want to have children. Because you know what, it's a preset environment where we know that in places like Luxembourg, close to 90% of all marriages are actually ending up in a divorce. And there's no constructive model yet where we actually make co-parenting the status quo in Croatia. If that would be the case, then everybody would say, hey, no problem, you can divorce, you can be together or not. It doesn't matter whom you spend the night with. It's important that children always have both parents accessible. That's powerful. But then you do not allow any of the parents to move away. You make sure the kiddo can reach both of them all the time. That should be the standard and the status quo. But I've seen battles. I have been attending family court sessions in Croatia, and I enjoyed going early to the court to just stand outside the courthouse. And I've seen people in their late 30s who have their files under their arm and to look like they're going for battle. And you can see that their light bulb is only operating on a 10% capacity. And so going for battle doesn't help the children at all. And it doesn't boost their light, and it doesn't boost their childhood. So this is what I believe is the reason why we have this current pandemic of teenagers who complain about mental health issues, who have a suicide pandemic, and who are actually complaining about burnouts. So we never had a generation which was actually growing up through a phase of civil war and who are now in this devastated condition. This what we accept as a status quo.
It's funny, Andreas, when you mentioned educators and educators being women. Actually, as a passionate educator myself, I firmly believe that empowering children can be resolved through education on a large scale. So empowering children by giving them leadership opportunities, by putting them at the center of the learning experiences, so that they are not only taught about their rights, what they cannot do, what they can do, but by being directly involved. So children can be empowered in education by being involved in different projects that make a difference. It can be anything. It can be recycling, cleaning the parks, cleaning the beaches, collecting donations for charity, writing, drawing, helping the elderly, anything. When children behave from that area of power, then when they're making a difference, having some impact and some influence on a variety of outcomes, then they feel empowered, and it's very unlikely that they will act out, be depressed, or suffer any other psychological challenges, or, as you say, run the risk of committing a suicide. And when kids are empowered, anything is possible. And we as adults should not fear it. We should embrace it and thrive on it, because in the end, it is a result of our encouragement, of our support. Um, uh, the UN, for example, the United Nations are outlining, also coming from children voices, are outlining very well how kids want to be included in a society by not just being, again, educated about the rights, but by being directly involved, by not being treated as receptive, passive recipients of information, but by being prepared, by being talked with in a language that they understand, by teaching them how to claim their own rights, how to recognize when rights are violated, how to empower other kids and help them stand up, to teach them about some norms that are acceptable human behaviors, and to basically encourage them to take upon every opportunity to behave as a leader, as an upstander. That's what I believe in as an educator.
So when do we add this to the curriculum to have some upstander classes and primary and secondary school? And as Marian asked here, yes, this video evidence is admitted in court, and video evidence has normally metadata, which includes time, which includes location, etc., etc. So the video which was taken as an example in the case of George Floyd was crucial evidence to document it. So what I'm trying to say is, Sanja, when do you see Croatian curriculums including to teach kids how to take videos, how to stand up, and how to actually articulate themselves? I know that we started it last year through this Manabu movement, and it actually has gone to a certain degree viral afterwards. But what do you see is what would make that happen?
Well, there have been recent attempts in the city of Zagreb primarily on citizenship education. They've polled all parents and they've asked for interest with their children attend these classes. So that's something, for example. But your question, I see it tomorrow, tomorrow as implementable. So yesterday, not tomorrow, but yesterday, we're already doing it in my world.
Yeah, I think if I could jump in, is that one of the things is that we don't need to mythologize everything with this new technology and everything, how we will do it, how we will explain it. Let's be frank, my kids know better to use phone and edit on it and upload it immediately, better than all four of us. So I think that we should just allow them and maybe to use school as a possibility or tools of reaching them out and tell them that this can be used in, fighting for their rights, not only for Snapchatting, not only for TikToking, but hello, you know that, okay, you can TikTok and everything, but you know that you can make a great fuss only with this. This is your tool. That's one of the points. And the other point, the only thing I don't agree with you, Andreas, is when we talk about Luca's generation or the generation after Luca, which comes, generation of my sons, our children. Because already they told me, I talked to one of them, and he said, you are leaving a mess to us. So I think that it's up to our generation, yours, mine, Sanya's, and also Luca's then, to try to do something before they come, because this saying is up to their generation is very, Ponce Pilatus. It's like we are washing our hands and we are saying it's the best for the youth. The future is on the youth, and we can go for having a drink and saying, okay, we have done everything.
Not only that, Robert, but your generation, you guys have families, you are tied to one location. Like, at least by buying a real estate, you feel like you cannot move freely, or you cannot change location that easily. And your children go to that particular school, have their friends there. So if you move, your whole life has to change. And my generation, we know that we can still move around, and that's why it also is about your generation to also participate in changing it. Because my generation, or when I was 18, I didn't know where I will live, or I saw the opportunities to live anywhere in the world. So if something is wrong in Croatia, right, I said, okay, I'm not a tree. I can just move away, and it's not my responsibility. And not everybody feels like they can change something. But saying that, I wanted to say it comes, children's education comes from parents. So children will not block their learning, and they will not block their education. It comes from parents, and they are the ones who block their education, their children's education. And I'm not saying that just from making it up, but I was talking to what I consider the biggest experts in education in the last 6 months or so, and I'm working directly with them. And I was also lucky to, or had an honor to speak to to Melita Požge recently, who gave me some valuable information on how many divorces are there in Croatia. For example, there is 1/3 of all marriages are resulted in divorce, and that's only the cases that are reported. And there are many other unhappy marriages where nothing happens. They don't divorce because of children, because of financial reasons, and who knows what. So most marriages we can not that exciting, and not only that, unhappy marriages result in violence in some cases. Like in for example, in England, there was a research where they checked who are the young people who are violent at football games, soccer games, and it turned out that 70% of those people were children from divorced parents. And this is where it all starts. I think it all starts by making that education, making that biggest decision of your life about marrying someone and having children available, in very easily available, and it should be a must for someone my age or anyone to learn what it means to sign a contract with when you're marrying someone, when you have children. What does that mean? Because right now there's very little to no education about those topics, and this is more important than getting a driver's license or anything that I can think of that is currently prioritized in education. So imagine a portal that if you donate, you can donate a couple of euros, and you can learn about different cases, from experience, from people who have lived through this bad experience of marriage, and also learn from people who can help you. And Melita Požge is one of them. And there are stories that are, if someone, I wish people younger than me and my age knew before they marry, just to know that this is possible. Because there is for example, I just want to tell a story quickly. There is a father who lives in Porec, which is in Istria, and his ex-wife is with his kid in Serbia, and that's 800 kilometers away, for 680, sorry, 680 kilometers away, and he can only visit his child 2 times per month for 2 hours in a social services building for 2 hours. So that's always at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. So he first of all has to take a day off. He needs to sleep over somewhere to get there and be there in the morning, because he won't start traveling there at 2 a.m. and drive all night because he'll be too tired. So he needs to sleep over. Then he can see his kid. If he is early, 10 minutes early, and his kid is there, they don't give him 10 minutes more. They will let him wait for that moment. And this father, he says this is his reason to leave. And that person died after 2 years of traveling like that. That's about 2,800 kilometers per month, just to see his kid for 4 hours per month. And this is just one case. There are many. There are about 3,000 cases right now in Croatia where you have examples like that, and nobody's talking about it. And this is where innovation can help.
And yeah, I agree. Luca, this is systematic. So I know about enough cases where the lawyers recommend relocate, move away. Yeah. Then they recommend file accusations like whatever it is, abuse, violence, because most judges that have to investigate, and for the period of investigation, they have to limit access. So, and then the outcome of the first report of the investigation will be challenged by the lawyer. So it will be in the second report. All of this takes years. So, meaning actually you are sabotaged in your relationship as a father or as a mother most of them fathers, through the way how the system is designed right now. And there is no repercussion at this stage for filing false claims. I have to see a single case where somebody for filing a false claim is actually prosecuted.
But
so you can lie.
I think
you
it's
can lie
also
to the judge, you can lie to the police, you can lie to your own children, and you get away with it.
I think one of the ways that when you will see in the future, like for example, my point of view is that in these cases of divorcing, how unjust might be to some fathers and how unjust might be to some mothers who are deprived of seeing their children. I'm not worried on them because they chose their partners, not knowing good enough them, knowing, making mistakes, I don't know. Children are the only one who didn't make mistake. The only thing what happened to them is that they were made in that marriage. They didn't, in a way, made a bond between their parents. They didn't make reasons for divorce. They didn't divorce their parents. So I think that the only innocent completely in this trio are the children. On the other hand is that going back to the rights of fathers or mothers who are deprived of seeing their children, I'm still not worried on that. I'm worried on the second thing, which is mostly important and we are keeping forgetting, and I believe that the system in Croatia is forgetting, is that there is a convention of right of children. And the right of children to have both parents precedes the right of one parent to wish to deprive that right to that child. So I think that we are forgetting the right of children. If we would go back the whole system to the right of children, then we wouldn't have the situation with Nicole, which we started this talk today. Because somebody will see that the right on life of that child is more important of those two people to be a parent. Somebody will think about it. And in situation of divorces, somebody will think that it's the right on child of two parents is more important of every rights of father and mother. But we're not thinking about it. The perspective is always on somebody and less on the child, and everybody is swearing and saying we are for the children's rights. It will be very interesting. I hope it will happen that one child which goes through the lying of her mother or father against her mother or father, I don't know which case is, and also against the system who believed and helped that parent to deprive the other of being father, to sue them all. To sue the state, to sue sue the mother, to sue the lawyer, to sue the judges, because they don't have time. The judicial system, where the percentage of one court session can go for 7 to 10, 12, 20 years. You know, some of the situation I know about the children, they are now full of age. They are on the, I don't know, third of their judicial situation about their benefit. It started when they had 5, 4, 3 years. So there's no need for them. They were destroyed by the system, and nobody has anything to say about. It's correct. And if you have 2 years and waiting, 22 to be sold, to which parent you should go? Sorry again for swearing. I'm a little bit bitter today, but fuck you. That's for me.
Yeah, and Robert, the interesting thing which I have been bringing up to the attention of people in different European jurisdictions, child abuse is criminal. So what is happening right now, as an example, in Croatia, in those cases, this is what in the terminology is called parental alienation, which is emotional child abuse. In the case of Nicole, it's then physical child abuse as well. So, but emotional and physical child abuse are both criminal under the existing law. The issue is that they do not want to prosecute. So, meaning the same police, which Sanja mentioned before, where somebody calls and says, by the way, there's a case happening, and they say, independent of who is the actor in this, we have to take the man because this is how the police is briefed in 2021. So if somebody in the authorities finally wakes up and takes their own criminal law seriously, then they would go after the people, first of all, who file false reports. Second, after the people who orchestrate the process of orchestrating emotional child abuse by actually advising people to move to a different location or coming up with false allegations, which then take multiple years to investigate. Or I'm even aware of a case where it was investigated and there are court-ordered psychiatric evaluations which confirm that the mother is a risk to her own son, but the child protection people still don't act because they're too close to the lawyer and they're too close together. And why would they, as a group of single mothers, do anything to actually protect the child? So, and that is actually under the current existing law in multiple European jurisdictions criminal. But the current government accepts that as a status quo.
And that is I think one of the
statements that nobody's guilty.
And that's my point, is that we are perfectly rewriting the ex-communist system in the new capitalistic Croatia Western civilization, supposedly, system. And then you have Mariam, who made a question, and I think she's right, because it's how can we put such a good educators or those who will educate the judges as an area in this system? Because does the system support such a bit socially critical and conscience educated? Mariam, I think no. Maybe Sanya thinks differently. When I started out as a teacher, I certainly did not get any support. When you're young, you want to go big things, but then I agree with you. It's very hard to break. Sanya, what do you say?
So we go back to what Luca was saying. The first educators, the first teachers for children are their parents. So regardless of families being divorced or together or functional or dysfunctional, there's, I think, a lack of children encouragement in our families in Croatia and in the region in general. So what we can do as parents, as guardians, to empower our children is a lot. And then that is the power of future generations who will become different judges, different lawyers, different police, who will not allow for the system to step on them and to control them wanting to stand up. So, for example, from my experience, having two boys in a family, they are 12 and 10 years old, empowering them works on different levels. It goes from outlining their goals, from revising family mission and vision that we do every couple of years, from having fun together, from even doing housework. So nothing excludes the other here. If we have some chores to do or if we have some errands to run, it does not mean that we cannot do it the kids' way and that we cannot have it doing it in a fun way. So, for example, we can let them choose music to listen to while we are cleaning the house. We can do an activity later on when we finish cleaning the house. This is a win-win situation. But let's go back to empowerment. I don't want to be sidetracked too much. So I believe that as parents, we can do at least 3 things to empower our children. First, whenever there's an opportunity to problem solve, I think we should let them problem solve on their own. The more they are independent, the better we are at parenting. And again, it's a win-win situation. Second, kids will often want to find excuses to make it impossible for them to problem solve. They will either elicit some explanations how it's hard to face their teachers at school or their friends or both or siblings at home. And by teaching our kids how to lead courageous conversations, we empower them to problem solve. And that is oftentimes all it takes for a positive outcome. And the third, we should let them make their own mistakes. Let's not swipe all the obstacles before them and clean up the mess after them. They will learn more by reflecting on their own mistakes than from us preaching about it or sharing our own big stories and cluttering their little heads with our experiences. It's smarter sometimes to learn from other people's mistakes and experiences. And we often want to share our experiences and our mistakes so that we can help our kids not to repeat them. But we are causing noise and clutter in their minds by doing so. And that is then being counterproductive. Basically, what I believe is that the same as good leadership requires good coaching skills, which is basically listening and questioning. Parenting is also leadership, and good parenting requires good coaching skills. If good leadership means nurturing future leaders, then good parenting also means fostering and raising future independent thinkers and forward-thinking leaders. And then when someone tells me that they are not into leadership or that they don't have their ambition to their children becoming leaders, that's nonsense. That's the same as saying that you're not interested in doing what you do well, or that you're not interested in fostering meaningful and strong relationships. And nobody should be allowed to say that, because we do want to build that collective responsibility, collective leadership. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Nice, well said.
I like it. Well, the leadership, as far as you said, is something which we, of course, I think that the beginning would be if we would accept the fact that we are, as a parent, I'm not talking as a parent, the first educator, as you said, and that we accept that role and we start to educate them and start to teach them and give them tools of their own, so they can decide what can do for them best in a way. I think that coming back to, ending this session today, is that maybe we can think about it, how we can, if you're watching us in your environment, use the tools which are with you. Use them and help yourself so the other can help you. Because if we are being just quiet in this society, then you become very lonely. If you have your voice, you can bring it to them. As I said before, they are more voiceless than you are. You can use them. You use your voice. That's my advice for you.
You have the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, who has an office in Sofia for the Balkan, and they run programs for upcoming journalists to train them how to do what you do, Robert, investigate and use mobiles and the power of mobiles to do this even better. So they train journalists to become better investigative people by applying the power of e-mobile. And so if we do this for children, so we boost the Daniela Fraser experience in the George Floyd case, so we empower them to actually stand up and use those tools, that's powerful. And the only other wish I have is somebody in the Croatian government actually orders to have monthly reports on the next 100 Nicoles and what actually is done to avoid it. So I would love to see there's an update on the 100 cases which are in a similar risk pattern, and actually have accountability and transparency about what is done to make sure they do not end up with a minced brain. Yeah, and last but not least, I would love to see somebody like an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Croatian government who posts on Instagram about those matters and clearly addresses them and makes them part of the discussion, so that there isn't that leadership situation where somebody operates like she does. And in that manner, you can see this right now with what's happening in Germany with the succession of Angela Merkel. There's a generation of women in their 40s coming up, and they're using it. They're operating in that way. So that is the next generation of leadership, and that's super powerful. And I hope that some of the men who are in the Croatian government right now wake up and actually start doing it, because they will be asked the question. I do not believe that Croatian people will accept more minced brains in the years to come.
So, Sanja, Luka, just the ending words.
Sanja?
Thank you. I think I've said enough. Basically, my point is that through children's voice, we can change the society by educating, nurturing, fostering future leaders and future generations. So we don't educate the judges, we educate our children as parents, as educators, as guardians, as anyone who's involved with them.
And I would say And I would say for people who are not married or that don't have children yet, go to website Udruga za ravnopravno roditeljstvo, read the cases, listen to other people who have lived those experiences, and just educate yourself on this topic, because I believe child abuse, there are extreme cases like Nicole that could have been definitely stopped, and we could have changed that. But there are also cases of child abuse, and probably thousands of cases like that, where there is some kind of violence, physical, mental violence, and depends on how you define child abuse. But by making your marriage, by educating yourself about marriage, about having children, or by realizing that if you have children, you are not the victim, the child is a victim. You don't have a problem, the child has a problem, and it's the child that's being abused by you not thinking about them, but thinking about hurting your partner or them hurting you. You're just damaging your children, and that is just a message I would send to people who have children and are married.
Okay, at the end, I just want to say that I also don't want that message comes out. You know, there are beautiful marriages, there are beautiful childhoods, and there are possibilities that you don't end up in a situation where you will be a child abuser. Just, you know, as Luca said, inform yourself, be aware of what marriage is, and then you can make your own sane decision. And thinking that the best thing is what you can do for your child is to be a sane parent. Okay,
Yep.
So guys, I think that's the end. I hope we were all satisfactory to our viewers, and that we can end this lit session and challenge ourselves for the next one. And I hope that we will have any response. If you want, you can write to us, you can write below, and hopefully we will be able to answer to your comments or your questions. So,
thank you, Robert.
See you next month, the last Wednesday in May. I hope it will be excellent as it was today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.